Hi everyone, welcome to another edition of Tim's Vinyl Confessions. I'm Tim Durley and I thank you for watching. And on this episode, this is a reboot. I've done plenty of reboots, redoing a topic that I did in one of my early episodes and then kind of updating it. It's Princess, our cat here in the background, one of our cats. And this one though, what makes it different is I just did this originally last year, going through my Kansas cassette collection. So why am I doing another one so quickly? Well, I was wrong. I thought that I had all the Kansas studio albums that were available on cassette, and I don't. So I've added to it, and not just that. There's something else I want to talk about too. So I'll get started on my Kansas collection. They're one of my favorite bands. They're well known, but in my opinion, they're not well known enough. And I love their album artwork too. Cassettes are smaller, but they're still here. So here's the first Kansas album from 1974, self-titled on Kirshner CBS Records. As opposed to having red on the side, it's got black. Sometimes they did that. There's your song titles. They're actually in order. I think they're in order. Yeah, they're in order because they weren't always. Even though it says C label for sequence, sometimes they did go ahead and put them in the right order. That's the tape itself. Inside the J card, there are other releases. And I'm thinking that this came out later in the 70s because it's got releases as new as, well, Monolith by Kansas, which is 79. So this is a late 70s reissue. The next one I can't speak to its issue because it's still in its shrink wrap. Song for America, 1975. They altered the artwork as far as, this was actually the first one that featured their logo. It's not on here to save space, I suppose. It's still got the actual artwork itself, but it doesn't look quite the same without the logo. Very faded on the side. And I think this one is in order as well. And this says being a CBS cassette, CBS is emblazoned or raised into the plastic itself on the case. The next one, 1975, it's very dark. It's hard to see the artwork from Mask. So if you're not sure, if you've never seen this one before, I would look at the, Google image it, or look at my vinyl episode for Kansas. And it's a really cool cover. Again, they don't use the logo, but they didn't use the logo on the vinyl or anything else either. Somebody, the initials RB owns this. Well, now TD owns it. The exact same, pretty much the exact same type of thing is inside here, advertising other cassettes on CBS labels. I don't think it's quite as new. I think this might go to about 1977, judging from what's there. Now this next one is a curiosity. I talked about this in the previous cassette episode. It's Leftoverture, their breakthrough album from 76. And if you look at this quickly, it looks like your typical CBS cassette, but it's US, but it's not US. It's a CBS stereo cassette as opposed to Kirshner. That's one clue right there. This is the big clue. Even though it's similar looking, it's not quite the same. And when I added this onto Discogs, I had a hard time identifying country of origin. Tape looks very different, and I'll show you what's inside of here too. Advertising other cassettes, the Anytime Sound from CBS. The catalog number does not match up the North American catalog number for Leftoverture. It simply says PC 4908 and 34224 is the North American catalog number for Leftoverture. So when I looked on Discogs, the closest thing I could find was New Zealand. So it's a guess, and I put that much in the submission notes that I think this is from New Zealand. I got it in a lot of tapes on eBay. The rest of them were all American. So where this came from, I don't know, but I'm kind of fascinated by that. The next run of these are all Canadian, which is kind of cool because Kansas were a band that were primarily well known for in the States, and subsequently bands like I would say Cheap Trick, I put them in that category too. You don't see the Canadian cassettes so much. But I've got a bunch of Canadian Kansas cassettes here, starting with Point of No Return. Stunning artwork here. So this is Canadian cassettes. They have this yellowish, I guess cream color, not cream color, but yellowish off-white And unlike just having a plain cassette, this one actually has a sticker on it. So I would say this is an original from 1977. There's nothing else in the J card itself. And that's what the back of it looks like. The next one is one I had never seen until it popped up on eBay. I figured I was going to end up getting a US copy of it, but I found a Canadian one. Two for the Show, their first live album. Very different logo they used here. I don't know why. I'd say this is an original. There were no reissues of this one. Not in Canada. Nothing inside the J card, and like Point of No Return, it's got a sticker on it. Next up, I got another sealed one, 1979, Monolith. I like this album. It's very dark, very moody, but I like it. I think it said $4.99 on it. I don't know if that was the original price or it was a markdown price. For the first time, they're using the actual Kansas logo on the side, and it's got a little R after, like registered service mark. I also want to draw attention to the Kirshner Records logo. It's just 4 circles, but they're joined together in such a way that it resembles a K. Next one is one of my favorite Kansas albums, Audio Visions. Now, I've had the 8-track to this for a long time, and this looks very much like that. The Canadian ones were right in line with what they looked like, the 8-tracks compared to cassettes. This is from 1980. Different logo on the side there, which they also use here, produced by Kansas. And all the Kansas albums, you know, during this period, they would say, you know, CBS Inc., but they'd also say Corn and Blood Inc. That was their sort of imprint. That's what the cassette itself looks like, using the actual logo on it. Next one, the album that gave my show its name, Vinyl Confessions. Couldn't find I've never seen a Canadian cassette of this. I'm sure I'll come across one eventually. This is a US copy. It's from 1982. I don't mind the album art on this. I don't know why they didn't use their actual logo. I don't like it's like a kid's coloring book or something. They're a kid's textbook or something they've got here. But great album. Still on Kirshner. This is the last one on Kirshner. Nothing in the J card, and there's the tape itself. Another Canadian one here, 1983, Drastic Measures. We're just 1 year away from when they switched to looking like this to being white on the side with the chromium dioxide, which was a big thing at the time, but this was before that, and there was no reissues of this because it wasn't a successful album. And instead of being on Kirshner, this one is on CBS Associated Records, which I always figure that's what they did with artists. They just didn't know what to call the labels. I guess Kirshner must have gone under at that point. Not even really a logo there. So that was the end of their contract with CBS, except for the inevitable Best Of, which came out in 1984. This is a relatively new version of it, although it's not a reissue from 99, but this is a nice clean copy of the Best of Kansas, Canadian one, with the right price sticker on it. There's, I guess you could call that the CBS Associated logo. You could tell this is a newer one. It's not really a J card, it's more of a U card or a C card. This tape itself, and very minimal credits here, but there's a little bit. Labels switched to MCA for a couple albums, and another one of my favorite Kansas albums. This is Power from 1986. This is a Canadian version, and it's on MCA, but it's a Columbia House issue, which you can tell from the blacked out part there. Other than that, it looks just like an MCA retail copy would have. This is the tape itself, and this one has no lyrics inside this one, but it's got credits and pictures. I don't know why. They could have put lyrics on the other side of it. One more album for MCA. Came out in 1988 and was not successful at all, In the Spirit of Things. This is a US copy. And back here, it's MCA Distributing Corporation there. Very cheap looking cassettes compared to the Canadian ones, I have to say. This one's got more of the lyrics and credits inside of it. And photos. This was a concept album of sorts. The next thing I've got came out in 1992. By now they're independent, and they put out this live album, Live at the Whiskey, which I'm pretty sure only exists on cassette and CD, and there was a VHS version of this too. I kind of like this album cover. It's got various things, and it's got like the ship from Point of No Return. It's got feathers and notes of music and seats from the previous live albums. Of course, it's got a fiddle or violin with the blue sky, and it's coming out of Hollywood because they played at the Whiskey, which is a pretty small place for a band that was around that long, but that's what a lot of rock bands were doing. They were rebuilding their career one show at a time. This was on a label called Intersound Records, and the only stuff I have on Intersound is by Kansas. This one's actually a BMG Direct version. That white box there is that's all about. There's the tape itself, and it's got the same credits that were inside the CD. Now this is interesting. Intersound has been authorized to release its collection of songs in audio and video format with Kansas full support and creative input. Any other compilations, audio or video, are not sanctioned by Kansas. I think that was their way of, Sony had put out a couple of really cheap looking compilations. I think that was their way of saying, you know, we're not okay with it. So yes, so something new to add to this. So 1994, a lot of box sets were coming out on Sony, and of course they put a Kansas one out. It wasn't a 3 CD set, it was only a 2. It means it was also on cassette. Now this doesn't have the box or the booklet with it, but since I have it on CD, that's all right. I got this pretty cheap off of eBay. These are not open, so these are the 2 cassettes that make up the Kansas box set. Worthy additions to my collection. And one more album for Intersound. Came out in 1995, a fine album, a really, really good album. I was so excited and tried to create a little buzz about it, but it never really caught on, being an independent band from the 70s. Putting out a new album in 1995 didn't really take off. It's a great album, Freaks of Nature. I think it's a really strong album, and I highly recommend it. I still think there's a lot of old-time Kansas fans that would be pleasantly surprised by how good this is. It was produced by Jeff Glixman, their longtime producer. The cassette looks kind of, this is when the low budget kind of sees through, because there was something with that printing on there, but good. Can't say enough good things about this album. This has got pretty much everything that was inside the CD, and I'm sure is inside the record, because my record is sealed. It was a strong lineup that put this out too. It was a Kansas consisted of at the time. Now, my last episode ended with Freaks of Nature. Also, I didn't have the box set on cassette. I thought Freaks of Nature was the last Kansas album to come out on cassette. And it might have been in North America, but not in the world. I have since discovered this. This is Somewhere to Elsewhere, Kansas 2000 album. Great album. This one reunited the original 6-piece lineup plus bassist Billy Greer. And this tape is from Poland. It's actually the only thing I own from Poland. It is sealed. And it came out on Magna Carta Records, the version I have on CD, but in Poland this is on SPV, which is a UK label. I've got a couple Whitesnake CDs on that label. And yeah, there it is, Somewhere to Elsewhere on cassette. Now, I'm pretty sure that's it. The only other one that I'm not sure of is Always Never the Same from 1998, the orchestral album they did. That might exist on cassette, but I have not seen it. If I do, I may be doing another Kansas cassette episode. Thank you for watching Tim's Final Confessions.